got to find some power, and we say, hey, lightning,